covering the world of professional wrestling. This is the Signature Spot with Chris Toplak.
3, 2, 1.
To steal a line from the great Stinger. The only thing for sure about the Signature Spot is that nothing is for sure. We're back with a special edition of the program to provide a full preview of the upcoming two-day WrestleMania 36. By the way, I haven't gone anywhere. You can follow the Signature Spot on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Signature Spot. You can follow me at Chris Toplak on Twitter. I'm very active there. And also make sure to stop by thesignaturespot.com for new weekly articles. You can also subscribe and listen to the past collection of episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And with the current landscape of the world, it's now more important than ever to be a freedom from concern. So sit back, enjoy the episode. That's why we're here. I'm joined by published writer and senior contributor to the Signature Spot, Kyle Scarf. How surreal is this entire situation to you? And more importantly, do you think this should have been postponed?
I believe, yeah, it should have been postponed at this point. Like, you know, they're too far in to do anything else, but moving it to the summer with the idea of like make SummerSlam, it's always been the second biggest extravaganza of the year. Maybe tie that in somehow and work from there. But again, we don't know. Come SummerSlam, we might still be in the same predicament.
We could be. I mean, many are predicting at least until May. Like I've been hearing June up here in the Great White North. In Toronto, they've canceled all public events up until the end of June.
I'm now hearing from social media, obviously, you know, don't trust everything you read. I've seen all the way through July now.
Wow.
Is where they're linking everything. So it's definitely an unusual time. I certainly never thought I'd live through circumstances such as this. Still waiting for zombies, obviously, given how I am. But I don't know what else I could say. It's a surreal.
It's a very surreal time. I think it's disappointing for everybody, but we just have to make do. Obviously, stay inside, be safe, make the best of it. So that's why we have WrestleMania now. Yes, it is controversial. It's under scrutiny, but nevertheless, they are moving forward. So before we go over the full two-day event preview with our predictions as well, let's go over some pertinent details. So again, this is now a two-day event. It will be taking place at WWE's Orlando-based, Florida-based Performance Center. It was originally scheduled for Tampa, Florida's Raymond James Stadium. I can't remember the capacity off the top of my head. I'm really good with remembering numbers, but I seem to believe it would be about 80,000 or so, about 70, 80,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe it was expected somewhere between like 76 to 81,000.
Okay, so it was going to be jam-packed. And, of course, we know that's not going to be the fact here, but they have to make do. It's reported that the majority of the card has been taped, but details remain unclear as to which matches are still remaining. The order is undisclosed at this point. They're still determining that. I have read in some places, you know, what the match outline is going to look like. I have to be honest with you. Trust the credible sources. Wait until it's official because I don't believe any of that. The start time is 7 p.m. in the East. That is both on Saturday, April 4th, and Sunday, April 5th. Again, there are about 16 matches at least at the moment. That's not confirmed, and we don't know the order. And due to his battle with leukemia, not wanting to further risk his health, which I completely agree with, Roman Reigns requested to be removed from WrestleMania, which was granted, and I thought that was a respectful move. Other names such as Rey Mysterio, Andrade, and Dana Brooke have also withdrawn. I believe The Miz, will get to that shortly too. And three-time Super Bowl champion Rob Gronkowski is the official host. And he already has his T-shirt as well too. And that kind of irks me because there's many individuals on the roster that don't even have their own T-shirt.
I personally am not really a big fan of Gronk. Like, I see the allure and the appeal of someone like him, but, you know, I'm not a football guy in any way. I think him and Mojo Rawley, like, you know, sure, they can be entertaining, I suppose, but if you ask me, like, if I was walking down the street in normal times and I saw two guys like that, I'd be turning the other way. They're not the kind of people I would certainly want to associate with. But I see the appeal, the name value,
the charisma,
and,
of course, as well too, and the fact I
Yeah.
do believe that he is sincerely a wrestling fan, which helps as well.
Yeah, that's very rare when it comes to the celebrities that they bring in. Lord knows they've brought in a lot that just have no interest whatsoever in the product. They're just there for the payday. So I do respect and appreciate that, he is an actual legitimate wrestling fan, just like the rest of us.
Now, if this predicament was not transpiring, because I don't want to risk his health because he's a national treasure, what about Bob Barker? Right? You could have had him there. Bob Barker was one of the best guest hosts in Raw history. Him and Chris Jericho had natural chemistry. So I digress. That's never going to happen. That's okay. Let's get to our matches. How about that, Kyle?
Sounds good to me.
So first we'll start with Aleister Black. Again, I'm not predicting the order here. We're just going to throw it out in this manner. Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley. Now, Black was recently asked about the sporadic pairing. He said the following: "See, I expected you to give me this question along the lines of why. There seems to be no rhyme or reason for Aleister Black and Bobby Lashley to collide because the world teaches us that sometimes there is no reason or rhyme for conflict." Bizarre. As for Bobby, we haven't seen him in quite some time, but him and Lana, I should say, are still a couple for the moment. Are you even interested in this match?
I'm a big Aleister Black fan.
Of course.
I don't know what they've been doing with him. I see him definitely going over in this one. It just seems like an opportunity to have him showcased and obviously get those two guys on the card so they get the payday.
Yeah.
Lana as well, because I've heard Vince is really big into the Lana character lately. So it just seemed like a way to get her somewhere on the card.
Sure. I think Aleister Black is the no-brainer here. For years, we have heard that Bobby Lashley is going to have this massive push. He's going to square off against Brock Lesnar. It's never come to fruition. I believe it never will. So Aleister Black will win. He has way more upside at this point in his career. Next match, we have Elias versus King Corbin, another matchup that was seemingly thrown together when Corbin interrupted Rob Gronkowski during a recent episode of SmackDown in the empty arena. It was Elias, of all people, who showed up and he tossed the King out of the ring. Apparently, Gronkowski has been advocating for these two to square off, so that's why we're here. Does King Corbin ruin the party, or does Rob or Mojo interfere?
Remember back in the day before the Women's Revolution, what they would refer to the Divas matches as, your
Sure.
washroom or smoke break? That's what this is for me. Elias as a face just doesn't work. He's far too pandering to the crowd. It just doesn't seem genuine. He's definitely better as a heel.
Solid
Corbin?
heel. He's solid heel. He generates a lot of heat. I always think about that time. I believe it was in Seattle with him and Kevin Owens. Amazing.
Oh, where they ripped on the Supersonics.
Yes, that was great.
That was one of the most heated crowds I think I've seen in the past decade.
That's one of the best crowds, I believe, in America is Seattle. So I'm hoping that more shows such as Dynamite especially, because I think they would have a great fan base there, and of course the Raw and SmackDowns and even NXT start to move towards Seattle because they really deserve that crowd. Or that.
Oh, yeah. One of the best WrestleManias ever, arguably top two, I would say. WrestleMania 19 at Safeco Field in Seattle. Seattle's a great crowd. As for Corbin, he's really pushing the old school heel style, and I can appreciate that.
Sure.
It just sometimes doesn't click, and he needs better feud and, in all honesty, better material to work with.
Yeah.
Again, this one I couldn't care less, but I'm gonna say Elias just for the feel good moment.
I am also going for Elias. I believe Rob or Mojo will interfere. It will be the numbers advantage, and Elias will emerge victoriously. Next up, we have Otis Take versus Dolph Ziggler. So this story is played out like a Hollywood movie. It's the stunning and cool Mandy, and she somehow develops feelings for the odd yet lovable Otis until the arrogant Dolph Ziggler steals Mandy away from him through deception. And it was Ziggler that issued the challenge to Otis, who really wants to embarrass him in front of Mandy. And I've always said, I've maintained this, Otis is WWE's version of Chris Farley, and that's just without the drugs and alcohol. But does Otis win and get the girl, or will he continue to be embarrassed by Dolph Ziggler?
Again, much like I said, the feel good moment between Elias and King Corbin, especially in today's climate, we need that happy ending somewhere on
Yeah.
the card, and I foresee it being here. Otis is definitely going to take this one. Whether he ends up with Mandy or not at this point, I don't see, but I definitely see Ziggler and Mandy kind of splitting from this point.
Wow, there you go. I'm going to throw a curveball in there, and I believe it could be Dolph Ziggler. How about that?
Interesting.
Yeah, so next up, we have the Women's Tag Team Championship. It is the Kabuki Warriors, the champions, defending against Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. This is essentially a rematch from their matchup originally at Hell in a Cell in October of 2019 that saw the Kabuki Warriors capture the titles in the first place. And to me, it's refreshing to see the Women's Tag Team Championship become a focal point again, as they were really pushed to the back burner for quite a period of time during the Asuka and Becky Lynch rivalry, which was a great one, but you still need to defend these titles. And Asuka and Kairi Sane, they were really the two that instigated this match by constantly mocking the team of Bliss and Cross. Now, Kairi has been recently married. She's been in Japan. I believe she did somehow make it back to the tapings. So, not that WWE is taking notes from me, and this is kind of off the beaten path here, but one idea I would love to see executed would be the next Mae Young Classic focused specifically on the women's tag team division, because they really lack a lot of depth, and I think that shows here. But will Bliss, Cross, Applesauce gain their revenge?
Yes, I definitely see Bliss and Cross taking it. Like you said, the women's tag titles have been on the back burner for so long. They're almost completely irrelevant at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea, the Mae Young Classic, focusing on the tag titles there. The only issue is between WWE, NXT, AEW, and all the other indies, MLW, whatever it may be. I don't know if there's enough decent women talent that's unsigned at this point that they could throw together a good tournament.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because they'd have to scour the world, and they'd have to put their thinking caps on, of course, William Regal and so many others. But at the same time, because they lack such depth at this point, they desperately need it if they want to keep this division alive and well.
That's the question, is do they even really care enough to keep this division alive and well?
I'm not so sure. I don't really see the commitment there, especially in the long term.
It's the forgotten title. It's much like the European title was for so many years. And even, I don't like to bring it up, but the 24/7 title, which is, a joke in and of itself. At some times recently, that's been more relevant than the women's tag titles, which is just outrageous.
And that's a testament to R-Truth, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Like he completely owns that division and that title, and he's done a wonderful job.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, we have another tag team championship. It's the Raw Tag Team Championship. I'm going to kind of lump these together. It's the Street Profits, the champions, defending against Austin Theory, I'm assuming, and Angel Garza. So with Andrade forced out of the match due to, I believe, a rib injury, Zelina Vega turned to another NXT prospect to fill the void. It was 22-year-old Austin Theory. If you're unfamiliar with his body of work, he comes from Evolve, where he reigned as the Evolve champion for nearly a year. Paul Heyman's very high on him. And perhaps it's just me, but a title change seems highly unlikely here.
Oh, no, there's no way they're taking it off the Street Profits to a makeshift team. As great as both Angel Garza and Austin Theory are, and I think both of those guys have a huge upside. This is, to me, going to be really a showcase for Montez Ford, who he's
the breakout star, in my opinion, I believe, already of 2020 in WWE. He's so athletic, highly marketable, charismatic. He's going to be a big single star one day, in my opinion.
I see him headlining a WrestleMania at some point in the future. Like, he's that good. He reminds me a lot of Eddie Guerrero.
Wow.
I see a lot of Eddie Guerrero in him. He's just so damn entertaining. Like, I know there was a video that went viral from a house show where the Profits were facing Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. And there was a kip up scenario, and it's one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen in wrestling, and he's just so damned entertaining that this is really just going to be a highlight for him. I feel bad for, everyone else in this match just because they're really there just to show up.
Fill the void, right?
Yeah.
So next up we have, and I believe they're going to retain as well too, the Street Profits. SmackDown Tag Team Championship. This is up in the air. This is The Miz and John Morrison, the champions, defending against the New Day and the Usos in a ladder match. So I always feel death taxes in a rivalry between the New Day and the Usos. These things in life are guaranteed, right? They're always contending against each other for the championships, or at least that number one contendership.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the greatest feuds probably of the last decade. The matches they put on, like, there's never really a bad one. Even their worst match is better than most of the rest of the card. The guys are just so damn talented and unbelievably mesh so well together.
Absolutely.
Now the question is do we have The Miz on the show?
It's in serious jeopardy. Yeah, it's in serious jeopardy. Apparently he was heading home during the WrestleMania taping due to an illness. Now, it's undisclosed what that illness actually is, but nevertheless, did they even tape it? Are they going to go a completely different route? What's going to happen?
I'd say bring in Joey Mercury to replace him, but I'm sure he doesn't want anything to do with a ladder match.
No.
Given history. But I'm not sure what they're going to do here. In all honesty, it's actually one of the most intriguing things about the show is how they're going to pull this off.
John Morrison could go solo, right? He could potentially go solo.
I remember hearing a rumor at one point that it was just going to be a singles ladder match with John Morrison and one of the Usos, but that has nothing to do with the New Day. That's so weird,
though. And then they represent the other. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That gives me flashbacks to like when, Sting and the Giant were WCW tag champs and they were feuding for the tag titles in singles matches. Like that's bizarre. Not how it shouldn't work like that.
That's a very WCW based scenario you just mentioned, by the way, too.
Well, it's WCW, right? What do you expect?
Yeah, that's true. So if I had to call you on it, what's your end prediction here? And I know there's so many balls up in the air here.
I'm going to say Miz and John Morrison somehow will walk out of WrestleMania weekend still the tag champions, whatever happens, just because they just got the straps. They're still kind of establishing themselves once again as a team, and neither the New Day or the Usos need the titles.
That makes sense. I'm going to propose this, and you heard me allude to it earlier. Morrison goes into the solo, somehow steals the victory. How about that?
I could see that, like, again, much like the previous match, kind of a highlight because that guy can do so much with his parkour skills. And in a ladder match, it seems tailor-made for him. Definitely.
And I certainly envy the, 20 abs that he has on his body as well, too.
Oh, Jesus. Like, I can't. Unreal.
So,
much like Finn Balor.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, the only thing they fear in life are carbs.
Yeah, and I'm a fat guy, so I can't relate in any way, shape, or form.
You'll eat the bread, they'll avoid the bread. For the Intercontinental Championship, it is Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. Sami won the IC title at the Elimination Chamber after pinning Braun Strowman in a 3-on-1 handicap match. I didn't love the gimmick, but it was great to see Sami Zayn win his first singles championship on the main roster. Daniel Bryan received this opportunity after Drew Gulak defeated Shinsuke Nakamura. This was last week on SmackDown. And now we have the Bryan and Gulak connection. And they've been one of the best things about Twitter because really Drew has been acting as Daniel's coach as he guides the leader of the Yes Movement through various routines. It's ridiculous. It's corny. It's laugh out loud funny. But will this connection be enough for Daniel to become the new IC champion?
First and foremost, I got to say Daniel Bryan is an absolute saint for putting highlight on Drew Gulak, one of the best and most entertaining guys on the roster.
And we know that's his doing too. Like, we know that he probably approached management and said, I want to put this guy over and give him the rub.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel Bryan is not selfish in any way, and he will do what he thinks is best for guys like him in the business that need that rub.
Yeah.
Now I remember hearing a rumor that Daniel Bryan actually was backed out of WrestleMania.
Wow. Because he didn't want to risk the traveling. Obviously, his wife, Brie, is pregnant with their second child. So I can kind of understand that scenario there. Plus, I believe he lives in Arizona, if I'm correct, right?
I believe so, yeah. So with this, I could almost see Gulak stepping in.
Yeah.
Either way, I think Sammy retains in nefarious fashion because
of course
he is a heel. But I think if we get Sammy and Daniel and they're given the right amount of time, we could be witnessing a classic. Like, to this day, I'll say Sami Zayn's match with Shinsuke Nakamura at NXT TakeOver is one of the greatest matches I've ever seen, certainly in the last 5 years.
Heightened emotion behind that as well, too, because you have the debut of the Japanese superstar, the Japanese legend, really, in Shinsuke Nakamura that was goosebump-inducing. And then you have Sami Zayn with his swan song, putting forward a valiant effort. I just thought the story in that match was damn near perfection.
Absolutely. Like, when the Fight Forever chant started, I almost had a tear in my eye. Just feeling privileged to witness such a great match.
I have goosebumps actually talking about it. In particular, the scene and the shot that always does it for me is when Shinsuke's coming out and you see Sami Zayn sitting in the corner smiling ear to ear. I go, oh, that's what wrestling is all about.
Yeah, that's for guys who are as passionate about the product as us without being actual in the business.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what it's about right there.
Definitely. So somebody that Sami Zayn is very closely connected with is Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens is taking on Seth Rollins, the Messiah of Monday nights. So these two have been at odds for seemingly months. And with the formation of Seth's crew, they have gotten the upper hand on not only Owens, but also Samoa Joe as well. So Seth accurately noted recently that he's been featured in some great moments at WrestleMania. Of course, notably at WrestleMania 31 and all throughout, with Owens continually coming up short, which is true. So Owens, could he be a stunner away from getting his arm raised and having that moment this weekend? Or will Seth Rollins have yet another moment?
I'm going with KO on this one. With the rumors, we know that Buddy Murphy's backed out of Mania. I believe it's Razor is injured, torn bicep. So Rollins won't have any of his crew really. And Rollins is so established at this point that he doesn't need the victory, whereas KO needs that rub.
He needs it more. And the thing that's weird about Kevin Owens is that we've seen at times he's gaining this great momentum, then it's completely derailed, and then as we know with momentum, you have to start all over again to gain it.
Absolutely, and I don't know why it's like they push and push and push, and then right as they're about to get him over that hump, they pull him back.
I don't know why, because he's believable on the microphone, he's a great performer, I think he has everything going for him. He's a very unique look. Now, I know that that's controversial to some where they say, yeah, get in shape, but it's ridiculous because he stands out.
He stands out. He can go in the ring better than, probably 90% of the roster. He can do anything. So I think Owens has to walk away the winner here, especially if they're trying to establish him as a new version of Stone Cold. Certainly the stunner and the anti-authority, all of that. He needs this win.
He does. So I have Kevin Owens winning as well. And prior to that, I don't think I mentioned it, but I do believe Sami Zayn will retain and also potentially stretch out the feud a little longer. Whether that is with Daniel Bryan or Drew Gulak, that's going to stretch out more. We move along to the SmackDown Women's Championship. It is Bayley, yes, the champion, defending against Lacey Evans, Tamina, Naomi, and Sasha Banks. Now, Paige was the one who announced this match 2 weeks ago on SmackDown. The surprise was that Sasha would be added to the match, which was, as M. Night Shyamalan, reference here, what a twist, as I know you like to say.
What a twist.
That's exactly what it is. So will the friendship with Sasha lead Bayley to retain, or will the boss leave with gold around her waist, Kyle?
I think Bayley's going to walk away with it, but it is setting the stage for Bayley Sasha going forward.
Who's the babyface and the heel here, though? Does Bayley go back to being a face? Because Sasha Banks is, to me, a definitive heel character.
Oh Lord, like you look back at their matches in NXT at the end, like the one I
Incredible.
respect. Um, Sasha knows how to work a crowd as a heel.
Yeah.
Bailey's heel turn, it would be generous to say it's been a flop.
Oof.
It has not worked other than the initial turn. Why we have all these other people in the match? I've even heard Nia Jax is getting thrown in there as a surprise return.
Really? Maybe she wins, though. You never know.
I could see, I can almost see her taking it, and then that somehow gives Bailey and Sasha something to move on without the strap in the picture.
That's true as well, too. So I believe that Bailey will retain, but if Nia Jax is thrown into this, and you just threw me for a bit of a loop here, if she's in it, I'm going with Nia Jax then.
Yeah, I don't know why Tamina's in this match or why she's, in all honesty, still employed.
Wow. Well, tell me how you really feel, Kyle. Jeez.
Yeah, she's got a great, the Mafia kick is pretty much the only thing she can do good. Naomi is obviously awesome. Lacey Evans, but I guess they're just there to fill time in my eyes. The real story is about Bailey and Sasha.
Yeah, and Dana Brooke was supposed to be in here, and I think we have to give credit where credit is due, is that she's not quite at the top of her game, but she has rapidly improved over the past couple of years.
Oh, if you look at her, back when she was kind of the henchwoman for Charlotte a few years back to now, it's marked improvement. Like,
yeah,
I hear she's one of the hardest working people on the roster. She's constantly in the performance center trying to get better, and I have nothing but respect for that. It's unfortunate that she's quarantined currently, much like the rest of us, and can't get that moment, but I still see good things down the line for her.
I do too, and I certainly hope that she gains some semblance of a moment in the months that follow. NXT Women's Championship, or the NXT Championship, I believe that it is now referred to as. It's Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. So upon winning the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble, Charlotte was faced with a decision to make in regards to her opponent at WrestleMania. So she was sitting there playing the odds and thinking, well, I've reigned both as Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion. And then she turned her attention to the one championship that has eluded her, the NXT Championship. Now, Ripley has never been one to turn down a challenge. She welcomed the idea, and the match was quickly made official. The champion does have a pinfall victory over Charlotte, if you recall, at Survivor Series, who was, and really that clearly aggravated Flair. So will the Queen hold all the gold, or will Ripley continue to reign as a strong champion who conquers challenges head on, Kyle?
This one has potential to be match of the night. I do believe Charlotte was the NXT Women's Champion. Obviously, that was before it became what it really went on to become. Ripley she's great. I just don't know if she's quite on the level of Charlotte, and I'm not even a huge Charlotte mark. But I think these two could put together quite a match. I see it almost being like a modern day Terry Funk, Ric Flair style match. I hope they would watch, maybe even the I Quit match from Clash of the Champions way back.
1989.
Probably Flair's best year. And I'm not a huge Flair mark by any stretch of the imagination. But this one, I see Charlotte's going to win, let's be honest.
Really?
I think so. There's no reason for her not to, and she can, instead of being kind of second most important women on the roster on Raw to Becky or Shayna, she can go to NXT, tear it up. I'd love to see her and Bianca have an actual match. Yeah. Her and Io Shirai could be amazing. So I think there's much more good to come out of her kind of heading down there, even if it's only for 6 months, or whatever it may be. And it also gives the more of a rub to both NXT as a brand and especially the women's title there. And Ripley, I feel she's better being the one who's doing the chasing.
And I've said that recently too, is that the chase to defeat Shayna was incredible. Now that she's champion, it's the challenge that many babyfaces really, are forced to conquer, is the fact that it's, how do I stay relevant and how do I make this interesting now? Because it's tough, because if you're the underdog who's a scrappy underdog, then it makes sense. But if you're not, and you're in her case, it's very difficult to really maintain that momentum, especially during that chase that you had.
Yeah, she hasn't been the same since she won the title. The chase there was one of the best of the past few years for any title. It reminded me a lot of like Kofi Mania.
Yeah.
In many regards, or even the Yes movement leading into WrestleMania 30.
Makes
she
sense.
had so much momentum, and then it just seemed like it stalled afterwards, and this is a chance to kind of get her back in that position.
Well, also keep in mind, too, the one flaw that they had in this was the fact that they rushed it a little bit. They didn't really introduce her over a prolonged period of time. She was just thrown into the mix. She came over from NXT UK, and she was right there, essentially as a top contender. So I think maybe if they stretched it out with a little bit more time and really had that invested interest from the audience, or at least that emotion or the fact that they really care to see her as champion, maybe it would have been different, but who knows?
Absolutely. In many ways, I think that spot of the chase and everything was originally earmarked for Toni Storm, especially with the history of the Mae Young Classic. But Ripley, with that different look and attitude, kind of got over out of nowhere, which is maybe why it was rushed in many ways. And like I'm a huge fan, but I think that she has a long way to go before she's where she really needs to be at the top of the card.
So I have Rhea Ripley retaining, actually. So we're gonna go in different directions there. But next up, we have a Boneyard match. We'll get to that momentarily in terms of what that means or what it doesn't mean. But it's The Undertaker versus AJ Styles. And ever since The Undertaker defeated AJ at Super Showdown as a surprise entrant, Styles has been obsessed with getting even. At Elimination Chamber, Undertaker's interference caused AJ to lose to Aleister Black. And the Phenomenal One certainly made this rivalry personal by using The Undertaker's real name, Mark Calloway. That's a cardinal sin. You never do that. And even ripped into his relationship with Michelle McCool and how she essentially controls his life. AJ also noted how he ruined his emotional moment at WrestleMania 33 by not retiring, and even wondered if The Undertaker should have retired 10 years ago, as he's now just a broken down old man named Mark Calloway. And this past Monday, The Undertaker struck back, wearing a leather jacket, a toque, a bandana, which was an ode to his American Badass days. He addressed Styles by his real name, Alan Jones. He even noted that AJ was content being a big fish in a small pond. He's referring to TNA, because he didn't have what it took to hang with the very best in the business. The Phenomenal One, my ass, he said. You waited until they were all gone except for me. Ooh, I really loved that promo from The Undertaker on Monday.
It was a great promo, and I want to preface my comments by saying, I'm a huge Undertaker mark. I have the Undertaker symbol tattooed on my arm. This isn't going to be The Undertaker versus AJ Styles. It's going to be Mean Mark.
Mean Mark Calloway, yeah. So we're going to have the Biker Taker versus AJ Styles.
Yeah, and I love the promo. I thought it was one of the best Taker promos of the past few years, although I have to admit the burial of basically the current roster kind of came through on that, which, depending on how you look at it, obviously.
Sure.
That kind of lessened the impact. What intrigued me was him referring to the unholy trinity that he's going to have to face off against the OC. Obviously, Kane will probably appear in this, given that the Boneyard match sounds like it's just going to be flashbacks to the Kiss Demon and Vampiro.
Some were guessing APA. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but some were actually guessing APA because of their ties to the ministry, right?
I could see that. I'd love to see Ron Simmons spinebuster into a gravesite.
Or a clothesline from hell, which never grows old either.
No, certainly not. I'm going to go out there. I was trying to think of people from the ministry that could appear with Kane.
Don't say Midian. If you say Midian, I'm shutting this down.
Well, my initial thought was Viscera, but that would be really hard.
Hologram.
Well, yeah, we could do that. But, really, who else? Gangrel?
Yeah, but they have essentially like no ties to each other, really, only for a brief moment in time. So that wouldn't even make sense. Who else would it be?
Like,
Giant Gonzalez has since passed. Now we're just throwing weird names out there. The Yeti,
King Kong Bundy,
who since passed.
You know who I might actually see being in that spot?
Who?
Aleister Black.
Aleister Black. Wow, that would
He's
give him a
got-
massive rub. And of course,
Well,
there's ties to him and AJ.
Him and AJ, it fits that, it's almost like a passing of the torch for Taker because Lord knows like he said, he's got
Time.
way more matches behind him than he does in front of him.
I thought
Huge
this would have
rub.
been a great send-off, by the way, too. If this was in front of 78,000 or 81,000 fans, I think this would have been a great send-off for Undertaker to potentially win this match and then say, that's it.
It would have been, yeah. And, he obviously handpicked AJ knowing that AJ is probably the guy on the roster who can give him the best match outside of, Daniel Bryan.
He's the closest to Shawn Michaels, right?
Yeah. And if anyone's going to make him look good, it's AJ.
Of course.
It's unfortunate that it's been turned into what this has become, along with another match that will be on the card that we'll be discussing shortly, I'm sure.
Yes.
Uh,
And what is a Boneyard match? Nobody's made these stipulations clear. What is it? AJ was the one that proposed it. I wanted to actually follow up with him on what is he on? Mixer and some of these places. I don't really play video games. Just to say, what is a Boneyard match? There's no definition of this anywhere, AJ.
I don't think anyone knows. It's obviously something that I'm guessing Bruce Pritchard will be producing and filming. I see it being very cinematic. It certainly again, flashbacks to the Kiss Demon.
Oh, no.
It's going to end with someone almost like a buried alive match is my prediction.
There you go. And that makes sense.
Standing tall.
Undertaker needs it more, though. That's the thing, is AJ can afford to lose this match. As much as I would love to see AJ, get the rub from this, he doesn't need it. Let's face it.
No, AJ's over. My prediction is if we see Aleister Black as part of that unholy trinity, Taker goes over to, in a way to almost pass the torch to Aleister. If not, it's got to be AJ.
There you go. I believe it's going to be the Undertaker as well. It's a very personal rivalry, and Undertaker has arguably the best dance partner available with AJ Styles. I'm anxious to see how that plays out. Next up, I think it's the one you were referring to, is John Cena versus The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, in a Firefly Funhouse match. Again, what is this? Who knows for sure? But these two first clashed at WrestleMania 30 with John Cena emerging victoriously. Personally, I felt that was the wrong decision at the time.
Yep.
And I still do. I know that you feel the exact same way.
That match could have been where Bray Wyatt became the superstar that he's now finally becoming. 4 years too late. That said, this is going to be, pardon my language, a shit show.
Probably, yeah.
House of Horrors flashbacks.
Oh, boy.
I don't know. Again, it's going to be something very obviously cinematic in style. Again, something I'm guessing Bruce Pritchard will produce. Bray has to win.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he became a dominant force. He lost so much steam losing to Goldberg for the Universal Championship, which they tried to really twist this story by saying, oh, I purposely lost it so I could face John Cena, but that doesn't make any lick of sense.
That was probably the most ridiculous booking decision maybe ever.
Whoa. Don't you dare.
It's way up there. It's got to be one of the worst and stupidest decisions, especially given the circumstances now. Where
yes. Jinder Mahal would like to have a word, by the way, with his world championship.
You know what's hilarious, and we'll get to that later, actually. But yeah, Cena doesn't need this in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Cena could lose every match the rest of his career and still be the legend that he is.
By the way, how about this? How about when they made it personal, too? So as we know, of course, Cena returns to SmackDown. He says, I don't want to take away a spot. The Fiend points at the WrestleMania sign, and he's like, I've changed my tune, I guess. I'll take a spot. Yes, I will. But then they meet face-to-face at the empty Performance Center. John Cena, of course, a total pro on the microphone. He said that he believes Bray is not the future, and claims that others are more deserving of it, such as Tommaso Ciampa, Ripley, Shayna, Velveteen Dream, Riddle. I think I might be missing somebody. But either way, Bray countered by saying, it's going to be a slaughter. You just don't know it yet. Very chilling.
Bray's promo, both Cena and Bray are amazing on the mic.
When John is serious, there is maybe nobody better when he's in that realm. There's a few at that level, of course, currently, but he's on fire when he's that serious John Cena, and he doesn't go for the laughs and the jokes.
Yeah, absolutely. He ditches the poop jokes and gets his head on straight, and nobody's that good.
No.
I also feel the same about Bray when he's on, like that promo between both of them. One of the best promos probably leading into this WrestleMania. But I can't see any way that Cena wins this.
Yeah, I have Bray Wyatt winning as well. I think it's a very obvious decision. You and I are both very hopeful about this, but also equally nervous, I believe.
Yes, Lord knows there's been a lot of times Nexus that Cena's made the wrong choice in going over, but I think at this point in his career, he realizes what he needs to do.
Next up for the Universal Championship, it is Goldberg versus TBD, my favorite. Days ago, Roman Reigns confirmed the reports that he had withdrawn from WrestleMania prior to the tapings. This leaves Goldberg without an opponent. It's rumored to be Braun, but if you were forced to select a replacement, who would it be and why, bro?
I would love to see Matt Riddle.
Yes, of course, me too. It's never going to happen, but it would be fantastic and entertaining, and of course, it would be truly heated.
You know, so first of all, I heard a rumor, I don't remember the source, but that one of the people Vince was thinking about sliding into the spot was Jinder Mahal.
No.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, unfortunately. I don't know why he would do that. Maybe he just wants to, in a way, bury Goldberg once and for all. God.
No, but he wouldn't pass the championship to Jinder, would he? There's no way. I don't see Goldberg losing. I think they're going to wait till Roman returns. I really do.
I got something different that I'm going to throw out here, and this literally just came to me, I swear.
I hope you're not wearing a tinfoil hat as you say this, by the way.
I am not. Okay, this is going to be on night 2.
Okay, so you believe this will be night 2. Again, it's not confirmed. It might be by the time you listen to this, which day will be, featuring which matches. But as of right now, it's all up in the air.
Yes. Night 1 features Drew McIntyre beating Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship.
Okay.
There's my prediction for later. I apologize.
Okay.
Brock Lesnar shows up.
Oh, okay. And
wins the Universal title. That gets him back over on SmackDown where, they
Fox
have the bigger contract with Fox. And that could also lead into a feud with maybe Cain Velasquez down the line if he ever shows up again. Mm-hmm. Lord knows there's still those rumors of Daniel Cormier coming in at some point.
So you're saying Brock. You're putting money on Brock, and I know that this is kind of out there, right? But you're saying that Brock loses, which seems to be the case. We'll get to that a little bit later. And then he actually will go over and face Goldberg. He'll win it. He'll move to SmackDown.
Yeah, just throwing that out there.
Okay. But also, remember, Paul Heyman, he's the executive producer on Raw. That means that he'll have to do double duty.
Yeah, a little bit of extra travel. But Lord, right now, especially even if it's only short term, everything's being taped all together, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true. They can make it work now.
That work.
So you believe it's going to be Brock Lesnar, right? That's what you're calling? Final prediction?
Yeah, he's got the history there.
Okay. I'm going with Goldberg retaining until Roman returns. So we'll leave that as is. Next up, you want to talk heated, you want to talk emotional, look no further than Edge versus Randy Orton. It's a last man standing match. Edge's return at Royal Rumble was not only one of the best surprises in recent memory, but a truly heartwarming moment because upon retiring in 2011, he was forced to walk away, but not on his own terms. Fast forward 9 years later, and he can finally dictate the final chapter of his story. The rivalry really kind of first got started when Edge eliminated Randy at the Royal Rumble. Randy was intending to do that himself. The next night on Raw, the Viper struck by hitting an RKO, naturally out of nowhere, and proceeded to attack Edge with a chair. He hit the concerto, being that exclamation point. But why? According to Randy, it was for the love of his friend and to combat his addiction to the bright lights of wrestling. But then to take it one step further, he wasn't done. He struck yet again by hitting an RKO on Edge's wife, Beth Phoenix. Now, these actions clearly lit a fire under Edge, who clearly wants to eliminate the Viper once and for all. He wants to cut off its head. But will he strike again? Will he ruin this plan, this final chapter? Kyle, in terms of emotions, no other match comes close to this, right?
No, this is the match I'm most looking forward to on the entire night. And if you would have told me even 5 years ago that in 2020 I'd be looking forward to a Randy Orton match, I probably would have laughed in your face. But Orton has been on fire.
Yes, he has.
When he's got that, good story to work with, very few are better. And Edge, I want to say that look on his face when he came through the smoke at Royal Rumble, that look of, I get to do what I love again.
Genuine emotion, yes.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most emotional moments I've ever seen as a wrestling fan, and it warmed my heart. I'm a big Edge fan. I think him and Orton are going to tear it up. This is probably my pick for match of the weekend, especially since we don't have an NXT takeover to battle with.
Two total pros, by the way, too. Like two seasoned veterans that get it.
Yeah, they understand psychology better than 90% of the roster, I'd say. Yeah. And I think they're going to tell a very good emotional story. Edge is going to walk away the winner.
Of course. I believe Edge will too. That seems to be pretty obvious, at least in my eyes.
But I see this probably being the most emotional last man standing match since Ciampa and Gargano.
Which was a great one.
Which was absolutely amazing. I don't know if the work will be on that same level, but I think the psychology will be.
It will surpass it, in my humble opinion, because these are two that know how to work very smart.
Yes, and even seeing the concerto brought back, those chair shots with the head involved.
With Matt Hardy and Edge, yes.
Something that wasn't very, hasn't been permitted for a good probably 10, 11 years. So they've done things that aren't really permitted normally, and they're going to take it to the next level in this match.
Adds realism to the story. It also really makes Randy this unforgiving, relentless bastard, right?
Oh, yeah, like the most heartless, cold-blooded killer.
That's what they need. That's where he shines.
That's when he's at his best.
Absolutely. So, Raw Women's Championship. It is Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler. The two first collided at Survivor Series in a triple threat match involving all champions. Of course, as we know, it was Bayley that ended up tapping out. Since then, Shayna lost her NXT Championship, and she set her sights on Becky by attacking her from behind and going full Hannibal Lecter, bitter neck, or you can say Twilight or whatever you want, but I'm going to go Hannibal Lecter here. And then to earn the shot, Shayna brutalized and eliminated all 5 competitors in a very quick manner at the Elimination Chamber. And as for Becky, she has been the reigning Raw Women's Champion since WrestleMania 35, nearly a year. But in my humble opinion, she's lost a considerable amount of momentum at several points throughout the journey. So is now the perfect storm for the dominant Baszler to run through Becky, or will Lynch overcome her biggest test to date?
I remember hearing a rumor months ago that after WrestleMania, Rollins and Becky would be taking time off. That leads me to believe, especially given the build here.
But they can't go anywhere, right? I mean, I think they were supposed to go on their honeymoon, but their honeymoon will have to take place in Iowa from the comfort of their living room, I guess.
Well, time off's time off.
True.
I see Shayna walking away the champion.
Yes.
Becky, like you said, has lost an incredible amount of steam over the past year. Even going into WrestleMania, she had lost a lot. And they just don't know what to do with her anymore.
No. And if Becky wins, who else, though? That's the thing, is if Becky wins, there's literally no one else for her to compete against.
Yeah, unless you're bringing Ronda back. And even then, I don't think so. I could see Shayna winning, and if Ronda was to come back, I don't think Ronda's that great with psychology or even in the ring at times, but Shayna is leaps and bounds ahead of her in terms of
Yes.
like the MMA fighter who's come in. She understands the business like very few. And I see Shayna taking the strap here. Becky taking some time off just to get off camera for a little while might help,
I think so.
rehab her image. And Shayna can run through the Raw roster until, say, SummerSlam time.
And Becky comes back.
Things exactly.
Shayna will be a great dominant champion, too. I mean, she'll be the one that just bullies and destroys essentially everybody on the roster.
Yeah, just like she did in NXT.
Essentially, yeah, until somebody steps up, right, and they tackle the challenge. I mean, that would also be a big pop, too, to have that perennial underdog that eventually defeats her, much like Kairi Sane did in NXT.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know who can fill that void.
Don't know.
Maybe bringing in Io Shirai if she ever comes up.
The one matchup I think that we all have to see is Asuka versus Shayna Baszler. Imagine a rivalry between both of them.
Yeah, let Asuka be the killer that she can be.
Yeah.
As opposed to the whatever they've done to her over the past few years.
So you say Shayna Baszler. I agree. We move to the WWE Championship. It is Brock Lesnar. We already kind of spoiled this versus Drew McIntyre. After a dominant performance at the Royal Rumble that saw him as entrant number 1 and eliminate 13 opponents in a row, Brock Lesnar met his match and Drew McIntyre after a low blow from Ricochet. Nice little help there. Drew hit the Claymore, which knocked the Beast out of the ring. And upon winning the match, Drew made a very quick and easy decision. It was quite obvious to challenge Lesnar for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania. But as we know, a motivated Brock Lesnar is arguably the fiercest competitor in the business. So Drew has his full attention, obviously. So will Drew's quest to finally be the chosen one be fulfilled? Or will he just be another victim who perishes as Suplex City?
Drew has to win.
No doubt.
This is the moment. If they blow it here,
It's done.
I don't think he can ever recover. And, I honestly hope this match goes like 20 minutes and they just beat the ever-loving hell out of one another because both these guys are big hosses. They can both go in the ring. And I think that we could see something real special if it's done right. That's my only fear is, will it be done right?
Yeah, but you do believe it's going to be Drew McIntyre. I do too. And then you're predicting, as we're going back in time here, that Brock Lesnar will actually be the one to challenge and defeat Goldberg for the Universal Championship.
It's really the only thing I could see them doing to get the strap off Goldberg.
That's true. So there you go. It concludes our WrestleMania 36 official preview and predictions. 2 final questions before I let you go. Will this WrestleMania exceed the tepid expectations? Because they're very lukewarm at this point, right? I would actually say they're pretty low.
When, like I said before, WWE's at their best when expectations are low. Looking back, WrestleMania 31 had very, very low expectations and turned out to be...
You know how I feel about that. That might be my favorite WrestleMania ever. And I know that shocks people when I say that, but I just thought it was almost a perfect event.
Yeah, it really was in so many ways. Like there was low points and certainly many, many high points. For me, I'd put it in probably the top 3 with 19 and 17.
Yeah, 19's right up there for me. If I had to pick a top 3, it probably would be 17, 19, 31, although it's interchangeable at times.
Yeah, and then I'd probably put maybe 10 right below that. No, you know what? My favorite WrestleMania is WrestleMania 11.
Okay. And this concludes... No.
But yeah, I do feel at least one night of the show will exceed. I'm going to say half the card will.
Do you watch it live, or do you pick and choose what you want to watch based on the reaction to the matches? That's a huge question.
I try to watch it live if I absolutely can.
But intently or in the background? Because I know a lot of people that are just going to watch in the background. It's not like it was before, because before, I mean, you've been a part of this too. We'd all get together. It's WrestleMania. We'd eat some foods. We'd have some drinks. We'd all hang out. Can't do that anymore. So, of course, it's a very different scenario. But are we just going to throw it on in the background and say whatever happens, happens, or actually sit and watch it like the glory days?
I'm going to say it'll depend on the match. It'll obviously be on. Some matches I probably will not it'll be more like background white noise almost in a way.
Yep.
While I focus on some other things that I'm working on. But certain matches will have my full attention, like the Last Man Standing match, the probably the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match, just to see, because those two matches to me they're either going to go amazing, or they're going to be some of the worst thing we've ever seen on WWE television. And I feel like there's going to be no in between.
I don't know why I picture you trying to put together an IKEA table during this. You're like, why can't there be a wrench? Why is there a wrench? Why is it an Allen key? And who is Allen?
Why, Alan Jones?
Final question before I let you go. What do you predict will be match of the night?
Edge and Orton.
Edge and Orton. That's your final answer.
I really feel that's going to be the absolute highlight of the weekend, bar none.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you being here. This concludes a special episode of The Signature Spot with Chris Toplack. You can listen to previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you choose to get them. And while this program won't immediately return to its weekly format, I can promise you more special episodes will be featured on a monthly basis. So until next time, happy trails to you until we meet again.
This concludes another episode of The Signature Spot with Chris Toplack. For new episodes, subscribe on YouTube, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or iTunes. And don't forget to follow The Signature Spot on Facebook for exclusive clips, polls, and opinions.
She wasn't dead, only left her body for a little while. In spite of